Good day and welcome to this training guide. Today we will discuss out-of-stream metadata updates and how to show some practical examples with Radio DJ and Wordpress to illustrate ingestion and consumption of metadata. Couple of things to keep in mind. Firstly, this guide only applies to clients on our Icecast infrastructure. Please contact support if you are unsure if this applies to you. The second point, in-stream metadata will always take preference. This in partly is a security measure, and ideally in-stream metadata should always be preferred. Thirdly, if you send metadata out of stream, it will not be part of the in-stream metadata, and you will have to display the song title via an API pull request. In-stream metadata, however, can be pulled via an pull API request. This enables clients that have in-stream metadata present, however do not have a compatible player, such as the one provided by Wordpress to display the song title. Let's explore this further with a few practical examples. In this first example, I will ensure in-stream metadata is present and illustrate how to pull the data via the AntFarm API. So firstly, I have WinAmp set up here with an encoder sending to a mount point. As you can see on top here, the song title is present, and if you play it in a compatible player, which can be a web player, HTML5 based player, or a player such as VLC. If you have a look here, once I push play on VLC and it starts consuming the stream, on the top you will actually see the song metadata being displayed. Just to show this, if I go to a different track, just give it a few minutes to apply. There we go, Kelly Clarkson, as you can see on the top here. Now what I would like to show you is the first step, which will enable you to pull this metadata out of stream. Firstly, you'd have to use our API, which is metaice.antfarm.co.za/metapull/your mount point. To give you an example of this, I'll go into my browser. And if you notice the URL on the top here, it's the base URL /metapull/my mount name. As you can see here, what gets returned is a JSON reply, which is compatible directly with WordPress and several other content management systems. This URL is available via HTTP and HTTPS in the event that your site is HTTPS based. If you have a look here within the JSON reply, you'd actually see the title being displayed. So now what I'd like to do is give an example where you would perform an API call to override the in-stream metadata, keeping in mind that manually updated calls do not override the in-stream metadata. So as you can have a look here, and you can see here, everything coincides. The URL to be able to update metadata is the same base URL, metaice.antfarm.co.za/metapush/mount name and song equals whatever you would like the new title to be. So in this case, I've already populated the URL and I'll simply execute it, and you should get a response very similar to the following. If I now go back and I refresh on the pull request, you'll see the following. Title, manual update. However, if you go back to a player that is compatible with in-stream metadata, you will see that in fact it has not updated the metadata at all. And if you have a look on the streaming directory with Icecast directly, they actually pull the in-stream metadata, and if you have a look at the song title on air, it actually still gives the original title there. So once again, I'll refresh here, and you can see the title is actually manual update, and this was executed via this API call. Now the following would be an example of how I would be able to ingest manual metadata from a client such as Radio DJ. Now in this instance, I'm currently already sending metadata via my encoder. I've already showed an illustration of how you can override this and pull the overridden title, and how this does not affect the in-stream metadata. So what I would do in this particular case is I'll load up my Radio DJ application. I would go to the now playing info, web export, and if I load this up, you'll see the format for this is exactly the base URL as described, metaice.anfarm.co.za/metapush/mount name and song equals. You'd have to set the method up as custom, and there is some custom data that you would have to append to be able to format the push request correctly. If you're unable to see from this video, you can request this format from Anfarm support and we'll gladly assist you. So in this particular case, you can see that I'm sending in-stream metadata and I've done manual updates. However, now I'm going to do manual updates from Radio DJ. Okay, if we have a look there, let's do a pull request. And immediately you'll see the title is the following, which I've highlighted there for you. So now, even though we have a situation where your in-stream metadata is still being preserved, I have decided to, via Radio DJ, override it. So where this would be a practical example is if your encoder does not ingest metadata, and you would like to ingest metadata yourself out of stream to correct this or to supplement the existing system, what you could do is simply configure your playout system, being Radio DJ or any other similar playout system, to push the API update request and update the metadata as you go through your playlist. As I mentioned before, the only catch is you would have to consume the metadata via the pull request. Now if we have a look here and we actually go to a practical example of integrating this with WordPress. If you log into your WordPress administration panel and you actually go down to your radio channels, just as an example, the first step would be your stream URL. In the case of WordPress, unfortunately, it only supports an MP3 URL. If you currently do not have an MP3 URL and require this for your WordPress implementation, once again, please don't hesitate to contact the Anfarm support. On the administration page, if you go down to the Icecast JSON URL, you'll see what I've done here is simply put the URL, the base URL, metaice.anfarm.co.za/metapool/mountpoint. No other data is required for this to work. The only catch is that you have to ensure that the base URL either includes HTTP or HTTPS, depending on whether your website is HTTP or HTTPS. And also keeping in mind that your streaming URL would have to also be either HTTPS or HTTP, depending on your website. So if you have a look here, this has already been pre-configured, and you should see a result very similar to the following. Now in this particular instance, I have not configured my Radio DJ to push to this mount point. However, I'll be able to quickly fix that. Simply change the mount point. Save and save again. And in theory, once you go to a new song title, it will update. And as you can see here on the base web page, you will actually be able to start seeing the metadata being ingested. And then once again, if I perform the pull request manually, you will also see that the title is now being updated from Radio DJ itself. Out of stream.